We're going to try this again and see if this works. So I am your safety services coordinator. I work my background is in engineering, and I come to you with an experience in manufacturing and construction, and I've been teaching scuba diving since 2008. I've been with DAN since March of last year, and I work on all things to do with training and anything that might have engineering background for you. I'd like to introduce you to Amy Mullins. Amy is also a master instructor, scuba diving teacher, instructor, and she comes to us with a chemistry background. So she brings a vast array of experiences that to our department that we very much enjoy. We have Ray Serrano. If you're ever ordering any materials or products from our warehouse, that would be coming from Ray. You might talk with Roland. Roland does all the shipping and receiving. And then we also have Stephen Medina, who does all of our printing and mailroom. Sure. Are you ready for me to start? Good afternoon, everyone. We're here to talk to you about the 2024 update for DAN instructors, instructor trainers, and examiners. Our agenda today is the following. We're going to go through who our department is, kind of an introduction of everyone. We want to talk about e-learning. We're going to go through the version 3.0 status, where we are on that conversion. We do have some U.S. Coast Guard requirements that we want to discuss. I want to talk to you about a Facebook page that we have as a resource for you, and a grant that we have in oxygen kits to make sure you're aware of that. Then we'll be going Okay, so we'll get started with our Vice President of Safety Services. This is Francois Berman. Francois comes from an engineering background. He's worked many years in hyperbaric chambers. In fact, he worked for a company that made chambers. He trains for hyperbaric chambers all over the world, as well as lots of federal regulations. He's our expert in all things safety services. Then you have me. My name is Joanne Hawk, and I am your Safety Services Coordinator. I also come with an engineering background. Most of my career was in engineering and manufacturing. I started teaching scuba diving in 2008, and I'm an instructor trainer, so I cover a lot of the standards and instructional things that might be going on. I'd like to introduce you to Amy Mullins. She's also an instructor. She's a master instructor. And she comes with a chemistry background. Her degrees are in chemistry, so she fills a slot in our safety services for us. And then we have in our warehouse, you have Ray Serrano. Ray is the one who's going to be shipping you any of our safety products or oxygen kits. He's the one who takes care of all that for you. Also in the warehouse, you have Roland, who does the shipping and receiving. And then we've got Stephen, who is our print and mailroom clerk. That is your safety services team. We are a resource for you, and we want you to know who we are so you can get a hold of us and we can help you out. Okay, next I wanted to show you a little bit about our provider level first aid courses. So we've been seeing an increase of CPR classes that you guys have been teaching. You guys are the ones who are teaching these classes and getting students excited about the DAN content. You can see there's been a vast improvement, a vast growth from 2021 to 22 to 23. And some of that was COVID related, but after that, 22 to 23, the increase really is about you creating an interest in CPR. We're very passionate about these classes because we think they make a real difference in our industry. Then there are some additional e-learning modules. So there's been a whole bunch of other additional e-learning modules that people are completing. These are available to your students free. Once they create an e-learning account, these can be available to them for free. However, you can create a course using this as the materials in your background. So here are some e-learning modules that you can use. Environmental stewardship, emergency planning. So what you might think about is if you want to create an environmental class, and you can use our materials and our content as the e-learning preparatory before the class. If you're doing value add, You can create that as something that is important to those students, and you can create a class that you are selling. To do this, you would go on and take the DAN course facilitation. You should find that either in your Available or your My Courses tab. You take it, and then any of the free modules that you have taken will show up on your account as teaching. You can invite students to them, you can track their progress, you can mark them as complete. There is no cost from DAN for any of that, but you can use that content in your classes. There's a lot of people creating some really great classes using this content, so take a look at it. Let us know if you have questions. Then becoming instructors. We do see an increase of instructors in the CPR classes and instructor trainers. Now, I will say if you look at the numbers on this chart, it doesn't necessarily show that. And that's because in 2022, all of the instructors that had to become version 3.0 instructors showed up as new. So the ones in 2023 are almost all new instructors, not people doing the upgrade from 2.1 to 2.2. We are sitting at about 1,900 instructors in America's world and in Asia Pacific. So thank you for all of you who are making these classes interesting and exciting and becoming instructors in our content. I always like to be able to provide back some kudos. When your students finish a class with us, they get a survey. And in the survey, we get some amazing comments back. And so I wanted to highlight a few of these. We will be creating a process where we're coming back to you and letting you know what is said about you and these great comments. So one, Brian did an excellent job delivering the content in a manner that was easily understood. Stephen took the extra time to ensure I clearly understood the process and the equipment. Greatly appreciated. So thank you, you guys. You make these classes exciting and fun, and the students are telling us that. All right, let's talk a little bit about version 3.0. Okay, so in general, version 3.0 had been launched in 2021, and it is now the training of that is our training. The version 2.1 has expired as of December 31st. You're no longer able to send new materials to students in the version 2.1. You need to maintain being current, you need to teach the class every 2 years. If you teach basic life support, it updates your certification for 2 years. If you teach diving first aid, it will actually update all three, diving first aid, basic life support, and emergency oxygen. Remember, if you're an instructor trainer, you need to teach at least DFA instructor every 2 years. And if you're an examiner, you need to also teach the instructor trainer every 2 years. The other thing I want to talk about in a few minutes is the U.S. Coast Guard approval that we've got on the 3.0. Okay, so the transition is now complete. Technically, the transition ended December 31st. There is a small grace period, though. If this week you call us and say, hey, I didn't know about it, I missed it along the way, we can help you get upgraded. So the upgrade, depending on what your previous certifications were, your upgrade is just simply e-learning, or it might require an upgrade workshop. We can help you figure that out if you're not familiar with it and you're not sure. The best way to get a hold of us is to email us at oxygen@dan.org. That gets you into the whole training department, and any of us can answer if any of us is out of the office. Again, there's only a very small window left for you to be able to do this upgrade, so let us know. Okay, with the U.S. Coast Guard approval, there are some new requirements. One is they're requiring us to do a ratio of 6 to 1, so 6 students to 1 instructor. That is a new requirement for us. And then you're going to see in a minute why on the certificate, but you must set it up as a class. And that class must have a name of both city and state. Again, you'll see it's because it shows up on the certificate, and you'll see that here in a minute. The instructor ID has also been added to the certificate, and this is because we do have a few instructors who have very similar names. And in our last audit, it so happened that we came across one of those. And it took a few minutes with the auditor to make sure we had that figured out. Okay, so here's what the certificate looks like. This wording is very specifically given to us by the U.S. Coast Guard. And in fact, one of them is approved and the other one is accepted. And that terminology is intentional. However, they want us to say first aid CPR DAN 197. And most of you guys don't know what DAN 197 is. That's a U.S. Coast Guard reference. So you'll see at the very top under the Divers Alert Network, I've added the small letters diving first aid. And that way you've got a little trigger that says this is the diving first aid class. It so happens DAN 203 is the basic life support. So there's that little trigger on the top of the certificate. In the bottom left of the certificate, you're going to see that it has location, and that comes from the class name. Remember I said the class name needs to be city and state? That's what prints there. So it needs to say your city and the state that you're training in. And then you see on the bottom right, you can see under my instructor, or see my name. My legal name is Josephine Ann. You can see my legal name and my instructor ID is now printing on the certificate. This certificate is what your students will take to the U.S. Coast Guard if they're looking for that approval. A couple of other things for the U.S. Coast Guard. They have implemented annual audits. So they are coming, and they came this last fall, and they gave me a list of 7 students and said, we would like to see information about those 7 students. I was able to show them from our side the student certificate, that the instructor was qualified when the instructor took their class. But what I'm not able to show, because you maintain these records, is the registration form, the skill performance record, the final exam answer sheet, and the attendance record. These are documents you should already be keeping. And in an audit, I might contact you and say, hey, your student's on the audit list. I need copies of these to provide to the U.S. Coast Guard. It shouldn't be any different than what you've already been holding. It's just now you need to be able to provide it occasionally. We had our last audit this last October. I don't expect to have another audit until this next fall, but you might hear from me at some point looking for some certificates. All right, I do want to tell you, we do have an official instructor Facebook page and instructor group. It is called DAN Examiners, Instructor Trainers, and Instructors. If you go out to Facebook and you search for that, you'll find it. Ask to join, give me your instructor ID number, and we'll be able to add you to it. This is kind of a fun place for us to share information and ideas, and so we'd love to get more of you involved and engaged. All right, I want to talk to you about the oxygen grant. Again, not so many people are familiar with this. DAN has a mission to provide oxygen ideally at every single dive site and on every single dive. So as part of that, there is a grant program. There is a matching grant. So any dive professional can apply. You would select your kit. The idea is that you pay 50% and DAN pays 50%. You'd pay your shipping, and this is a one-time award per organization. But please let us know. Then there is also a full grant. The full grant is intended to provide 100% of the cost, and this is typically for nonprofits, public safety dive teams, perhaps aquariums. If you think you might qualify, let us know and we'll help you out with that. I will say that we are still dealing with behind the 8 ball on getting shipments, and you're going to hear from me about why on the regulators. But we are now starting to ship, and we will start getting the oxygen grant program back out there. If you have questions, you can send a message to oxygen@dan.org or oxygengrant@dan.org. Both of these are on our website, and we can help you out. So the reason why we were in shortages, so Allied was our regulator supplier for many, many years, more than 20 years. They had a business interruption last year. They actually went bankrupt and sold. They are now back in production. In fact, I was just visiting their facility in St. Louis a couple weeks ago. And they are back in production. But in the meantime, we've sourced another supply, which is DEHAS. And DEHAS has a few changes in their regulators that I want to talk to you about. You can see in the picture the DAHAS has a blue labeling instead of the red. So if you get a blue first stage, it acts exactly the same. There's nothing different. You don't have to do anything different. It just is a different color. In the demand valve is white, and it functions exactly the same. However, it has a different hose. So it's still a DISS up at the first stage, but down at the demand valve, it's a low pressure inflator. So similar to your BCD, low pressure inflator hose, that same quick connect. So you need to make sure that if you have the DAHAS demand valve, you also have the DAHAS hose. They come together. You just make sure that if you're replacing a demand valve, check to make sure you have the proper hose that matches. The MTV, if you have an MTV, also has the quick connect hose. Again, just make sure you've got the right hose in your kit. There is a little bit of difference though. In the MTV, the function for the auto shutoff. So in our current one, in the Allied one, you'd push the button and you'd hear the sound of the gas coming through. And when you push it up against your hand, you hear the gas actually stop. In the DAHAS, the gas doesn't stop, it just redirects it out of the exhaust. If you have questions about that, give us a call. We've tested a lot of them. We're very happy with the quality. Give us a call if you have any questions about that. All right. I also like to tell everybody about the resources in risk mitigation. We have a ton of resources for you in this department that a lot of times people aren't aware of. We want to be your resource. So we do a lot of safety products for the industry, meaning brochures and booklets and guides and checklists. There's so much content out there that if you say to us, hey, we're struggling with emergency action plans, we can help you find some content, find some resources in that. We do a lot of regional events, workshops, dive shows, webinars. Anytime we're going places, we want to talk to you. We want to be your resource. Real-time safety consultation services. We have people call us every day and ask us questions about, hey, we're working with our compressor and we're seeing this on our air quality tests. We have a lot of experience in this and we'd love to help you out with interpreting that, and if you have questions, we want to be your resource. We don't get in the middle of anything that's in water. The in-water standards and the in-water resources is going to be from your scuba training agency. But everything leading up to getting in the water and everything getting out of the water, we want to help you with. Disinfection and anything you might have questions on, please give us a call. We're always looking to do education. We're looking to be able to provide regular webinars and regular things for your dive club. If your dive club wants to have a talk about a specific topic, let us know and we're going to try and help you out. Then the oxygen grant that we talked about a few minutes ago. We really are about growing a culture of safety in the dive industry, and we really are trying to be the resource for you and helping to make this industry a little safer. Okay, so here's a couple of the frequently asked questions that we get on a regular basis. The first one is, where do I find the instructor materials, or where do I find my certification card? You can see in this picture that when you log on, it goes to available, my courses completed, and teaching. It defaults to your teaching tab, but where the instructor content is on the completed tab. What you can teach is the student, the provider level. The content that you use to teach is in the instructor class you book. You go to the completed tab, you find the instructor module, and that's where you're going to find the final exams, the PowerPoints, the forms that need to be filled out. If you have questions, give us a call, but it's as simple as going to the other tab. Oftentimes we hear people say the system is changing my quiz answer. You can see in question number 1, oxygen is a clear, odorless gas essential to life. Please know I answered this incorrectly on purpose for the purposes of this picture. But I selected false, and the little hand there means that was my selection. The green check is the correct answer. We have students all the time say, oh, it's changing it to A. It didn't actually change it to A, it's telling you that A is the correct answer. We've added this little Q at the top, and hopefully that helps out with some folks. But if your students say it's doing that in the quizzes, that's what you might ask them to look at. Okay, and then I can't assign materials anymore. The most common reason is 1, you are a 2.1 instructor and haven't done your upgrade, or 2, your membership has lapsed. Remember, you need to be a current member to be able to teach the classes. And then don't forget, you can always use us as a resource. I keep showing the email, oxygen@dan.org, gets you to the whole training department. And we're here as your resource. All right, we have some really cool things coming in 2024 that we're working on. So, and I could use your help here a little bit. We're working on additional endorsements. So we have the U.S. Coast Guard endorsement, but we're also working on OSHA, Canada's version of OSHA, Australia, New Zealand, the Boy Scouts of America. We're working on getting the diving first aid approved as continuing medical education points that you could be using. If there are others that you would like in your community, in your area, please let us know. We would like to work on this and get our training approved in as many places as possible. So let us know if you have connections or places that you'd like us to work on. This is a really cool project that Dan has sponsored. It's called 1,000 Providers in 1,000 Days in Indonesia. And really the idea is we're saying that in Indonesia there are a lot of people who are deckhands or boat captains or even work on the dock that aren't able to get training in CPR. And we want to be able to provide more people having the ability to do this skills, emergency response skills in Indonesia. So Dan is sponsoring events in Indonesia where 1,000 people in 1,000 days, so in the next 3 years, 1,000 people get trained in emergency oxygen and basic life support. For every student, Dan is donating a first aid kit, and for every boat, Dan is donating an oxygen kit if they need one. So this truly does, we're intending to try and make a substantial difference in the safety in Indonesia, having 1,000 more people in the region that are able to be emergency responders. It's really an exciting program. If you happen to be in Indonesia and you want to help out, let us know. When we do these events, we are looking for instructors to help. We're working on a quick reference guide. The idea being that if you're on a liveaboard and you can't reach Google and you have that question of, hey, we're seeing this happen, what does this mean? Well, how should we think about it? We're working on a guide that you're going to be able to keep on the liveaboard and that it would help you out when you can't get to Google. We're also working on, we've been talking about dive safety officer programming for a while. We've been testing it out. We've taught a couple classes last year. And then we're working with a commercial partner that's going to start teaching these this year. And really wanting to be able to provide this out into the community through commercial partners. So this programming is soon to come. We're really excited about that one too. Then crossovers. I have a whole bunch of question marks behind that one, because we really do want to do crossovers where if you are a CPR instructor for a scuba training agency, you can cross over into the DAN content. I have a bunch of question marks behind it because that's something we do intend to work on this year, but it's not a current project like the other ones are. It's just something that we would really like to do. All right. That was a lot of content and a lot of time, and I apologize for the sound issues at the beginning. I was told when you'd go live there's always going to be some issue, and I promised them it wouldn't be me, and happily it wasn't. So I'd like to thank all of you for joining today. We are looking forward to hearing from you. Give us a call. You're going to see my email at the bottom, or you can contact us at oxygen@dan.org. Or you call the 800 number and go to option 2 and you're going to get us in our department. We're here as a resource for you, and we really want to be able to help you whenever you have questions. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you for all the work you do every day to support our training.